Okay, we're going to call the meeting of the Board of Governors of the California Community Colleges to order. Welcome. It is a beautiful spring day in Sacramento. Ms. Gilmer, will you please call the roll?
Absolutely. Hildy Aguinaldo, Darius Anderson, Arnaldo Avalos, Jeffrey Baum, Joseph Belensky,
Here.
Connie Conway, Iman Dalili,
Here.
Tom Epstein, Cecilia Estelano,
Here.
Pamela Haynes,
Here.
Jennifer Perry, Mon Fon,
Here.
Bill Rawlings,
Here.
Valerie Shaw, Alexander Walker Griffin.
Was here.
Somewhere.
Okay, thank you so much. I would like to have Mr. Board Member Iman Dalili lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. One last time, Iman. United States of America. Republic. Right. There's Mr. Walker Griffin. All right. So we're now on the item of the President's report. A couple of recognitions today. I noted that this would be Board Member Dalili's last Pledge of Allegiance, leading the Pledge of Allegiance for us. This is Mr. Dalili's last meeting for us, with us as the Board of Governors member. We expect him to come back, as a president of a college someday, or next United States Senator. But Iman, it's been a pleasure serving with you. You've been just a very important, valiant, and articulate voice for the student perspective. I also just really appreciate you just digging into issues, always offering good counsel. The fact that you always poll your members and bring to bear the perspective of your various student councils, I really appreciate. And you've just been terrific. And you came from a great place, El Camino College, so I would have expected nothing less. For those of you who don't know Iman, he's now off at UC Berkeley, doing very well there. And we expect, So as a bear, he's continuing to be successful, and what I've really appreciated is that even though he has been at UC Berkeley, he's continued his service on the Board of Governors. So his term is now coming to the end. He passes the student vocal cord over to Board Member Alex Walker Griffin. He's ready. Oh my. These two have been quite a pair. But Iman, we expect great things of you. You've already distinguished yourself here on this board, and I've just very much enjoyed getting to know you and teaming up with you on issues. So please stay in touch. Don't be a stranger. And you have one more meeting, so make the most of it, man. Thank you. I also want to recognize Board Member Gary Reed. Since our last meeting, Board Member Reed has tendered his resignation from the Board of Governors. And I'll tell you, Gary has been just a true public servant. He served on the Puerto Rico City Council, the Tulare County Board of Supervisors. He's been on the Board of Governors since 2006. He was on the advisory board of the Cal State in his area. He is just a pillar of his community and really one of the best civil servants we've ever had in the state of California. Or not civil servants, public servants that we've had in the state of California. What I appreciated so much about Gary was not just his perspective, but his wisdom. As a new board member, he welcomed me. He gave me terrific advice. He always was a gentleman, would take us aside if he had concerns or if he had suggestions. Occasionally, he'd get riled up and he'd make his views known in an economy of words, but very effectively. His tenure on the Board of Governors, during his tenure, he saw tremendous changes, and I think, Jeff, you've served with him for most of that tenure. He will be missed, and we look forward to honoring Gary's service, as well as a few other board members that have gone off the board in the last few months. We're hoping sometime in July we're going to work something out at one of our future board meetings, but this is a big loss to the state of California to have Gary step down on the Board of Governors, but we have been privileged to have his service as somebody who's been balanced, respectful, who've never lost sight of the interests of the students and the importance of community colleges to every community in California. So I want to thank Gary Reed for his service, and I look forward to bringing him back and embarrassing him in public. Okay. The last thing I want to mention on the President's report is that the Chancellor and I have been attending these meetings that are being convened by the College Futures Foundation. It's a meeting of the heads of the segments of higher education, plus Superintendent of Public Instruction, Tom Torlakson, and the presidents of the various respective governing boards of those institutions. We also have the Association of Independent California Colleges and Universities that have been attending, their board president as well as their executive director. And the purpose of these roundtable convenings is to really talk about how do we align higher education in K through 12 for the long term in California. We just had another one of these convenings in April and spent a bit of time talking about how do we plan for capacity for the future in 10, 20 years for California. They've been very interesting discussions. Everybody kind of puts their buttons aside and their hats aside and enters the room as a Californian who wants to see how we best serve the needs of students and our future economy. And it's been terrific. So that was a meeting that I attended with the Chancellor back in April. So that concludes my report, and I'll ask the Chancellor to make his report.
Thank you, Board President Estolano, and thank you to the members of the public who are here with us this morning. It is a beautiful day in Sacramento, although my nose and my lungs are not feeling the same way about this morning in Sacramento, so forgive my stuffed up tone. I have just a few updates. First of all, I want to congratulate all of the faculty and staff that are celebrating with their students over the coming weeks. This is commencement season, and so I just want to thank everyone at our 114 colleges who's done another tremendous job this academic year and is or will be celebrating with their students over the next several weeks. So congratulations to every single one of our students who's achieving their academic milestone over the course of the next few weeks. I also want to mention and thank Chair of the Assembly Higher Education Committee, Jose Medina, who came by this morning to a reception. He took time out of his busy schedule. This is a very busy time of the year for the legislature, but he did want to spend some time with the classified employees who we will be recognizing later today. So I just wanted to publicly thank Chair Medina for taking time out of his schedule to come by. Speaking of last hurrahs, I also want to take a moment and recognize that this is, while we will be talking about the May revision later, this is the governor's last May revision. And while those of us who have been in California a long time have experienced him for nearly 16 years in office as governor, I just want to take a moment because while certainly he has had some specific thoughts about higher education in general, he has been very supportive of the California community college system. And he's been very supportive of our students, of our campuses. So I just want to take a moment to thank him and his team for all that they've done. We're coming close to the end of his last budget, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank him and his team for his years of service to California and for his care and compassion for our students and for supporting our colleges. I also want to take a moment to recognize a group that's here with us today. Shasta College brought their Leadership Academy with them. Although we will be talking about their Innovation Award a little bit later, I wanted to ask the members of the Leadership Academy for Shasta College to please stand up and be recognized for being here today, and thank you for making the trip down. We will also be recognizing all of the colleges that received an Innovation Award today, as well as a special group of employees, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. but we have our Employee of the Year recognition. And I just want to take a moment to thank all of the classified staff throughout the 114 colleges. This is the backbone of our system. And we should be recognizing them every single day, not just one day of the year. So I want to thank them all on behalf of all of our students, all of our colleges, for the selfless work that they do each and every day. And then finally, let me just take a moment to make a quick comment about something that's been a topic of discussion a lot. No, it's not the online college or the funding formula. We'll talk about that later. We'll have plenty of time to talk about that later. I want to talk about specifically the vision for success and as it relates to the implementation of a recently passed piece of legislation, AB 705. AB 705 really sets into motion an opportunity for us to work at all of our 114 colleges and directly place students in transfer level math and English where the majority of them deserve to be. And so there's been a lot of consternation, a lot of discussion. I just want to make sure that people understand that we are going to do everything we can on behalf of those students who deserve to be in those classrooms and who deserve to be in front of the greatest faculty in our country. And so there's been questions about the interpretation of AB 705, the guidance that Executive Vice Chancellor Hope submitted. And while we will continue to work with the leadership throughout the system, particularly our academic senate leadership, on how to best implement AB 705. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that Executive Vice Chancellor Hope has my 100% support in the way that she's approaching this, and that we are going to stand behind the guidance that she submitted to the field. We're going to continue to work, improve that guidance if necessary, continue to work to ensure that the colleges have the resources, the training, the technical support to help our students be placed in the right class. But we need to do the right thing on behalf of our students, and we're going to do everything possible to ensure that we do. So thank you to everybody who's been working tremendously hard on the implementation of AB 705. None of us like a piece of legislation telling us what to do, including me. But we are here. We have this law that was, this legislation that was signed into law, and we're going to do everything possible to implement it in a way that supports, at the end of the day, our students. So thank you to everyone who's here, and I look forward to a great meeting.
Okay. We're going to take the consent calendar. We'll do approval of contracts and grants, and then I'm going to move some things around because we want to make sure that folks who are here for presentations have a chance to do that. So let's take the minutes first, and then we'll do approval of contracts and grants, and then I'll give you guys kind of the lineup on how I want to do the next few items. Go ahead, Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez.
Good morning, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Board Members, Chancellor Oakley. Item 1.1, it presents the March 19th and 20th meeting minutes for your review and approval.
Entertain a motion. First of all, are there any questions or corrections? Yes, Board Member Baum.
I just noticed that Member Reed was listed, and if I recall, he wasn't here for that meeting. In the minutes.
You're right.
Fix it.
Thank you. Okay. Any other corrections? Yes, Board Member.
Although Member Reed wasn't here, I was.
Okay. Okay. Any other changes? Connie, you were here, I remember. Okay. Okay. So we'll also add that. Connie Conway, Board Member Conway. All right. No other objections or additions. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Hey, Member Dalili, a second? Second. Board Member Rollins. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Objections? Okay, that's approved. Next, let's take the approval of contracts and grants. Item 2.1. This is a fairly hefty package. It's that time of year.
Yes.
So let's have Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez walk us through this, and then we can ask any questions.
So what you see here in this item 2.1 is all of the contracts and grants which exceed $100,000 or over 3 years in duration, as well as an excess of $50,000 for any consulting services. President Estolano is correct. Typically, you will see many, many more contracts and grants, specifically renewals and amendments, for two key reasons. The first is that it is the end of the fiscal year, and it coincides with the timing of this May hearing. The second is amendments for additional time for our districts and colleges to expend the funds as well as submit any reporting requirements. Today you have 35 items, and I've separated them into 11 renewal grants, 8 renewal contracts, 3 amendments to contracts, and 4 interagency agreements. You have 9 new grant allocations, and they are in items 16, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 35. I can go into further details, or we can take questions, and I invite my colleagues.
Great. Let's go to questions. Board Member Belansky.
I don't have any questions as such, but there are a couple of these. If at some point in time later, not now, I could be given more information, I really would appreciate it. For instance, item 8 talks about a library database, and I'd like to know more about that and if all 114 colleges are participating in that. Item 11 talks about an educational planning system, which would be ideal, and I'd like to know more about that in the sense, is it similar to something that the college is already doing, and yet this would help them better, but that's another one. And then the last one is item 18, because I use Assist every day. I'd like to know more about this particular piece and how that will fit in to better the Assist program. Thank you.
Board Member Shaw.
I was just curious, on 27 and 28, I noticed that the Los Angeles district not included in either of those. I was just wondering what happened. One was about foster youth, the other's about mental health.
So they were not awarded. Vice Chancellor Rhonda Moore will come up.
Good morning. Item number 27, we had a one-time funding for mental health grants. We received 46 applications for 15 grants. Is that 27?
No, that's
I'm
no,
getting mixed
that's
up,
20.
huh? Okay,
It
27
says
is the
26
CAFIAS?
on this one. 26 colleges.
But you were asking
So-
about 27 and 28.
I-
All right.
That's correct.
I'm sorry for my confusion there. So item number 27 is the CAFIES program, which is Services for Foster Youth. And last year, SB 12 Beal allowed us the authority to enter into agreements with 20 districts instead of just 10 districts. So we did a competitive award process. We got 26. I don't know if this says how many. We got a number of 26 proposals. So 26 districts applied. We did a competitive scoring, and the 6 districts here got the highest scores. The LA district is already receiving a CAFIES fund.
Okay.
So they were already included, so they didn't have to make it here. I'll also mention, as long as we're talking about this, that the governor's May budget revision includes another $5 million for this program.
Great.
Which would allow us to go ahead and award to the next 4, which we've already scored. We don't have to do a new competitive process.
Wonderful.
So we'll be doing that and bringing those 4 to you in July. On the mental health services grant, we had 46 applicants for that, and I think we had 15 awards. I do not know where Los Angeles fell in the process, or actually if they even applied
Okay.
for a mental health grant. I can certainly check on that and
Certainly
get back
need
with
it.
you, Board Member Shaw.
Thank you.
Board Member Fawn, followed by Board Member Haynes and Board Member Baum.
Items 2, 3, and 4 pertain to the zero textbook cost degree. And I know that some campuses have been talking about this and others are not. And I'm seeing here that 3 particular campuses have amendments or grants to that. Is this open to all campuses, or is there a bucket of dollars that those colleges who may not have money for the zero textbook cost ZTC degree programs could apply for? Could someone shed light on that, please?
So the 3 items that you mentioned are expansions, but we'll have more information for you.
Thank you. Those are actually, excuse me. Those are actually contracts as opposed to grants. And they are technical assistance centers to assist the grants. We had 25 grantees that are implementing 33 different zero textbook cost degree programs throughout the system. So the legislation that created this 88800 and gives us the ability to issue contracts to provide technical assistance to these grantees. So as they're implementing these grantees, these contractors assist them in curation of materials, helping them along the way. These 3 contractors themselves have implemented zero textbook cost degree programs, have experience in that area.
Okay. Then I have Board Member Haynes, followed by Board Member Baum. Anyone else?
So,
Thank you. Okay, go ahead.
So my question actually goes back to the foster youth grants, and it indicates toward the end of the description that a number of the districts have not expended the funding, and I'm curious to know because this was in 2016, and I'd like to know some of the reasons, some of the challenges of expending dollars for such a needy population. If there are barriers to that, why once these dollars get on our campuses, is there a delay in the money?
Yeah. Thank you, Vice Chancellor.
The way we allocated funds for the initial 10 districts, 26 colleges, was through the application process 3 years ago. We allowed the districts to estimate for us how much it would cost them to run their program. And so in the way I see it, some districts just overestimated how much it would cost them to run their program. Another and probably the main reason is that the colleges who were initially selected in the awards had a much harder time recruiting students into the program than they thought. The eligibility guidelines for KFES are very narrow. You have to have been in care after the age of 16, and you can't be more than 25 years old. So it's a very narrow segment of foster youth. So you have to reach out to those. If we had a database that we could connect to Department of Social Services, that would give the colleges the names of the students so they could do direct outreach. But as it is, without that data, they're doing outreach into the high schools, and that population of students sometimes does not want to self-identify. So it's a combination of things. We did develop a new allocation formula that's it's a base allocation plus a per student allocation, and it'll even out the funding for these colleges now in the soon to be 20 districts. So I think we'll have a better time. I would also say that when you're starting up, it takes a long time to hire staff sometimes. And some of these programs, get some doubt from the administration at the college as to how long the program is going to exist.
Yeah.
So there's some negotiating. And
So I just have, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it. So there's a couple of observations. One, that we really do need to have data and a database in place so that we can quickly identify, because there's an efficiency issue. And then the recognition that these students, as are many students, require a high touch. And they require the right person to be doing the high touch that can really that self-identify, because we really want to make certain that these services get to those particular students. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Board Member Baum.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions. Just on item 6, it says the amount of the agreement, and then it says 1718. Does just this amount apply to the 1 month that's in 1718 or not? It says 570,000 and then 1718, or is that just?
Sorry, I'm looking at it. Amount of the agreement. Go ahead.
Just the remaining month.
So it's just for that month alone, it's the $570,000.
Sorry, the 570. Sorry, the action you're taking is to renew, but the 570,000 is the full year.
Okay, I was just wondering why it says 1718 there then too. But
Yeah, I think this is a technical change that we just needed for that authority for the remaining part of the year.
And then I have a couple of other questions on number 8 and others. Did we rename our division the Digital Innovation and Infrastructure Division?
That's correct.
Okay, is that so? That's new
Yes.
too. I just hadn't.
No longer Tris.
Right. Okay, then the
We do that to make sure you're reading.
somebody's paying attention to that.
Thanks, Jeff.
Good. I like
Yeah,
the
no,
digital
appreciate that,
innovation too. The on item 17, I was delighted when we inked the agreement with the HBCUs. I'm surprised now. What do we need 500? Is that what's the $500,000 for? Because we already have articulation agreements in place.
So every year we bring them back for renewal. So this is just year 3 of 5 of this specific grant. It doesn't change. It just comes back for you for additional appropriation.
And what does the appropriation go for?
Just the amount agreed, which is $500,000.
To do what?
The same work that was previously approved.
Okay, good.
Good round.
Great to have somebody come up.
We have, for the HBCU, part of our agreement in the MOU was to provide staff and support to both get and analyze data from the HBCUs about the students that leave our system and transfer to the HBCUs. So that the agreement on their side is to give us that data so that we can analyze it. So we have a staff person through a district that does that. And this year was a little bit higher because they added another staff person because they weren't really having enough time to study the data. So we did a hire for a person who could both study the data and kind of dog the HBCUs to get the data so that we could study it. They also work with our colleges and the HBCUs who want to schedule visits. So those colleges that want to take a group of students interested in going to HBCUs, they arrange tours so that they can go back east and south to do those tours, and they do some of the traveling. So that's the $500,000 is for mostly salaries, but some traveling and then outreach.
And at some point, it'd be helpful to get the data then if we're paying
I agree.
$2.5 million for the period of that, because I don't recall a similar agreement for Western Governors Universities, articulation agreement, or other ones that are statewide too.
Yeah, I think that would be great if we could get a report back on that. How many of our students have gone on to HBCUs, Chancellor, and whatever number y'all have been able to crunch.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
And
We
then
will get
just,
that.
and the last point is just the broken record point. When I see hundreds of millions of dollars being contracted out from the system for things that are, for programs that are system-wide, it just seems like an inefficiency when a lot of that work could be directed through the Chancellor's office and could save these taxpayers quite a bit of resources.
Okay, well, thank you. Are there any other questions from members of the board? I'm sorry, Vice President Epstein.
I would like to echo Member Baum's last statement. This agenda is particularly kind of relevant for that point. I mean, the number of IT contracts to all different districts seems just a little bit unwieldy, and looking forward to the presentation later today. Hear more about that, but and then I have a specific question following up Member Fawn about the OER program. It's a relatively small amount of money, and I'm wondering why we need 3 different districts to provide advice to other colleges on how to spend just such a small amount of money. Why is that not consolidated in one? These are items 2, 3, and 4 again.
So these grants that were developed, this was a new effort in terms of organizing colleges across multiple departments and disciplines, which had never been really done at any significant level. Prior to the ZTC program being implemented, which was $5 million total of the program, and we implemented that in 2 phases. First, a series of planning grants for colleges to plan out the process, to learn about the process, and second, to then do implementation grants, which came in the second phase. So colleges actually have been doing open education resources in kind of an individual course here, course there. This was a systemic, programmatic, discipline effort that reached multiple program areas. If you think about your joint education aspect of a degree, it will involve multiple departments, sequencing the courses, and that was just something that we divided the programs up into these 3 areas so that they could provide greater focus with the projects that they were working on. The outcomes of these projects be put into the professional learning network so other colleges will be able to come behind them and learn how to do that. So some of the contract was working with the PLN to develop that construct and to then work with the colleges to get that information in.
I guess I kind of understand that coming from outside this world. It just seemed to me that there's a lot of common learning across these three separate districts that could be relevant to each other, and to separate that and create 3 different silos for what is it may be different curricula, but it's the same process, and it just doesn't make sense to me. And I hope that over time that we're able to consolidate more and more of these, because it just seems like it's an enormous administrative headache to have to deal with 3 different districts implementing the same basic program for a relatively modest amount of money. I don't know, it just doesn't seem like that's necessary. But
Chancellor.
Yes, Vice President Epstein, we recognize and appreciate the comments that you've made. We have, in many cases across the system, gone about trying to seed and spur innovation in different ways. We are searching for better methods to accelerate the adoption of innovations like OER, although they're not innovations in higher education anymore. The rate of adoption has been slow, if I can use a politically correct word. The governor has put about another $6 million for OER in the May revision, the intent of which is to have Executive Vice Chancellor Hope and her team work with the Academic Senate to find ways to accelerate the adoption of OER. So we hope to be able to come back to you with a plan to increase that adoption, to work with the Senate, to work with our faculty colleagues to increase the availability of these open education resources, because it has a direct impact on the cost of education. And so we need to be cognizant of that and increase our efforts to intentionally lower the cost of education at our colleges. And we think OER is one of those methods.
Madam Chair, can I make one comment based on that, on this topic, if I
Sure.
may? This issue is quite particular to me because as a faculty, and I echo your sentiment there, Chancellor, in that adoption of this is very slow. In fact, there was a training or event where major public publicity had gone out, and I was the only one to show up at a particular campus. And when I was there, the trainers basically, yeah, this is really on the faculty to choose to do it or not to do it. But as a faculty, publishers are knocking on faculty's doors and making their life, their teaching so convenient. And with the OER, faculty are required to surf the net, go outside of their comfort zone, get the textbooks and all the stuff. So there is no incentive per se at the practical, and I hate to insert a practical lens to this policy discussion, but this is the practicality out there, that why should I actually spend hours trying to find textbook out there when publishers are making it so easy for me to do it? So if we're serious about spending dollars and helping our students save money on the textbooks, I think there has to be a reimagining of how this gets adopted. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on contracts or grants, this big package? Okay. So I think just from that discussion, the debate on the OER and the zero textbook, it would be great, Chancellor, if we could do a report or a presentation on what it is we're doing on this, how these contracts are administered, how these grants work, what is the practicality. Hate to have that intrude on policy, but I think you're absolutely right. That would be great. It is such an important drive. I mean, the governor is doing so much to try to drive down the true cost of education for our students. Let's make sure we're providing appropriate oversight. Thank you for those points.
But just a quick analysis we've done on these 25 projects, the grants, and the 33 disciplines over the life of the program. The $5 million that went into this, we're projecting will save students about $42 million. So it's a tremendous return on investment. And to address Member Fahn's comments, yes, which is why the zero textbook cost degree program is a little bit more effective than the individual island siloed approach of having one faculty member do it. When you get a department involved, you get all of the faculty in that department involved. When you're sequencing the courses, you're reaching across multiple departments and coordinating things a little bit easier. So the ZTC approach and this infusion that we got 2 years ago put California at the forefront of ZTCs in the nation. So our 25 grants more than equal everything else in the nation. So we're actually providing great leadership in this area, and it is bringing back tremendous benefits to our students in terms of costs.
That's great. Let's have a presentation. You guys can give us, 10 or 15 minutes on it.
I'd love to do that.
But I think also this issue of how the money gets out, right? So no doubt we're having value, but these are small grants or small contracts that are being broken up. So let's just talk about that, how it's being administered. Board Member Haynes?
I just wanted to add to that list of the reporter presentation, and that is that when my last reading of the progress of the OEI, there was adoption of sort of the first module, and then there was a cutback on the adoption of the second module in terms of, and there's like 5 or 6 different modules that are absolutely interconnected to the success of our students. And so in that presentation, what I would like to see is to see who's adopting what and to what extent that is permeating their campuses. And I appreciate your recognition that when it's a singular professor or a small subset of professors and instructors that are using it, it is less effective than if it's a push departmentally and then there's a push on the entire campus. So I'd like to see what's happening, sort of maybe not in real time, but in present time, on how this is being adopted and where it's being adopted and to what extent there are successes and what still are the challenges.
Great, thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion for the contracts and grants.
So moved.
Okay, Board Member Shaw, do I have a second? Board Member Fawn, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Contracts and grants have been approved. Okay, so let me talk about our agenda. What I'd like to do next is pull up item 4.1, which is the recognition of our Classified Employee of the Year awards, followed by items 2.3, which is the 2018-19 expenditure plan for workforce and economic development, and then the 4.2 Ed Tech roadmap, because Vice Chancellor Von Quinlivan needs to leave a little bit early, so we'd like to pull her presentations up on the agenda, and then we'll proceed through the rest of the presentations. We'll also, depending on how this works, we'll endeavor to have item 2.6, the higher education awards, come right after that if we can do it before lunchtime. That's our goal. That's our plan. Let's make it happen. Okay, so let's do item 4.1, the 2018 Classified Employee of the Year Awards. Chancellor Oakley, take it away.
Yes, so this is announces the Classified Employee of the Year recipients for 2018, and certainly represent the finest our classified staff. So as soon as I find my item here, we will introduce everybody. All right. So the Classified Employee of the Year was established through a resolution at the May 2008 Board of Governors meeting. The award has been given out annually since May of 2009 and honors community college classified employees who demonstrate the highest level of commitment to professionalism and to community colleges. So the recipients are nominated by members of their college or district community and endorsed by their local board of trustees. Award recipients are selected by representatives of the Board of Governors, the Chancellor's Office, and the Foundation for California Community Colleges. So the Classified Employee of the Year award is supported through a grant from the Foundation for the California Community Colleges. So thank you to Keitha and the board of the foundation for continuing to support this award. Each recipient will receive a check of $500, a cash award, as well as
a delicious breakfast.
That's right. They had a delicious breakfast this morning. So with that, I want to recommend that the Board of Governors recognize the recipients for the 2018 Classified Employee of the Year Award. So there are in the packet bios and background on each of the awardees, but let me just introduce them briefly, then we can have them up one at a time to receive the award, and then we'd love to take a picture with the board and everybody. And certainly, Mr. Rawlings, Board Member Rawlings, we'd love for you to be up here to present the award as well.
So let's have the Chancellor talk a little bit about the person receiving the award, and if you want to come forward and say a few words, we'll do each of the four of you individually, and then we'll take photos, individual and then a group photo.
Good.
All right.
Great. So our first recipient is Sheila Dorsey Freeman from Imperial Valley College. Congratulations. Come on up to the seat there. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and say a few words on behalf of the award. hit that little button right in front of you. Perfect.
My name is Sheila Dorsey Freeman. I work in Imperial Valley College. My title is Human Resources Analyst. I've been at the college for 26 years and HR for 23. I directly work under our CHRO, who is currently Kent Doherty, who has nominated me for this prestigious award. I'm forever grateful. I am responsible for the oversight of administration and our faculty. So we tend to think those are our two hardest groups to work with. So they tend to be a little challenging, a little challenging, but at the same time, they are the gel that keeps us all together, and they definitely are the ones that are student-driven, and they're in the classrooms getting students through, and our administration is definitely the leaders that are moving us on to the next level where we need to be. So I definitely find it to be challenging. I am a member of ACRO. I work with EEO. I just helped develop and write a plan for the EEO, which is going to be on our May board agenda. Right. We just finished working on multiple methods so that we can get some of that good chancellor's money. Hopefully our $45,000 that will help us with our recruitment. So HR is moving in a very positive light. So I'm very excited of what's to come, and I appreciate receiving this award. In the audience,
Your
we
president.
have my supporters, and that is Dr. Johnson, Dean Zielinski, Dr. Martha Garcia, and our superintendent president even made it here. And he's in his retirement on June 30th, so I truly appreciate that he is here. He's always been my greatest supporter, and actually on a couple of occasions actually sat in on President's Cabinet and gave him an overview of what's been going on in human resources. So he's always felt that I was important and imperative to our department, and he's always been instrumental in pushing us to be the best we can be within our areas. So I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Come on up and receive your award.
Okay.
All right. Our next awardee is Mr. James Forte from San Joaquin Delta College. Come on up. Welcome.
Good morning, and thank you. Yes, my name is James Forte, and I've been with San Joaquin Delta College for going on my 13th year. And I tell you, it has been a tremendous blessing. Formerly, before coming to San Joaquin Delta College, I was at San Francisco State University, and I was there for almost 10 years. In that 10 years, I was just doing my job as far as coming to work, being an employee, commuting back to Sacramento during that time, and I didn't really have a chance to engage myself. So it wasn't until I actually came to San Joaquin Delta College that I kind of learned who I was, and just recently learning my purpose, and that was to help students. And I tell you, the biggest accomplishment for me is every year I get a chance to host the Latino Youth Conference, and we encompass about 1,500 students. for one special day where they can learn to what it is to go to college, what type of programs that are for them to attain. And these are all high school students. Some are junior high. And so I take great privilege not only in helping the students, but being a part of a family with my coworkers. I've learned everyone from custodial services to the president. And you know, it's like I look at people just as individuals, not because you have a title, not because you have, you know, certain accolades of like a master's degree or what have you, but that you're a person. You're here to serve a purpose. And so I learned what my purpose was being at 17 Delta College. And I'm very happy, I'm very honored for this award and this achievement. I'm not sure if my nominator is here, Susan Rodriguez. But, okay, well, unfortunately, she's not here, but I do have my sister Maria as my support. And so, once again, I thank all of you, you know, for the nomination, and it's a great honor and respect that I humbly come before you.
Thank you, Mr. Forte. Please come and receive your award.
The next recipient is Beth Ann Robertson from Los Medanos College. Come on up.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Beth Ann Robertson. I'm from Los Medanos College, which is part of the Contra Costa Community College District. I've worked for Los Medanos for approximately 10 years, starting off as an academic senate secretary for about 10 hours a week. And then I worked in pretty much just about every department at the college, from admissions and records to disabled students to student services, the foundation for the college, and landing for the last 5 years, I've been with the nursing department as their administrative assistant and half-time, and I also work half of my day in planning and institutional effectiveness. I also work as a project manager for 2 nursing grants and the TEAS testing remediation coordinator position as well, which I greatly enjoy working with our pre-nursing students and getting them to their educational goals. I feel in my life truly blessed to work in education, especially higher education, coming from a family of educators, working with students, and the team that we have at LMC is really affected my life, and I feel very blessed and grateful to have the position I do and to work with the great and amazing educators that I do. I'm very honored, humbled, and nervous sitting right here.
Doing great.
So, yeah, I didn't think I'd be as nervous as I am, but I want to thank you all very much for this award and for honoring classified staff in the way that you do. I know I'm speaking on behalf of other classified staff, but I know what we do is for our students, and we enjoy our positions, and it's a great feeling to be honored and recognized for the work that we do. So I appreciate that. I'm joined by our Chancellor, Fred Wood from Contra Costa Community College District, as well as my nominator, Sharon Goldfarb, our Associate Dean of Nursing, and my family supporter, Sabrina. So I'm very grateful to have them here behind me, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson.
And our final recipient is Sherry Suarez from Modesto Junior College. Come on up, Sherry.
Good morning. I really did not know that we would have to say anything, so first, I think so. I am Sherry Suarez. I'm the Facilities, Events, and Duplicating Coordinator at Modesto Junior College, work for Yosemite Community College District. I want to thank you all very much for this opportunity. I was surprised twice, once at a board meeting of even getting nominated. My boss and a colleague, Debbie, nominated me. I had no idea, and it was announced at a board meeting, and so I was very surprised. And then on our graduation night, as I was rallying my administrators up to get in line to take them out to graduation, it was announced again that I had won this. So I very much appreciate it, and thank you very much. Colleges and our students are so important to us. I have been involved with CSEA and our negotiating team for the last probably 15 years at the college also. So you see a lot of behind the scenes things that maybe isn't always as pretty, which I'm sure you guys can just sit there and agree with me 100%. But it is because of the students that we do it, and it's an honor and a privilege to be able to sit at a college and see the faces. We had one of our largest graduating group this year with over 601 cross the stage that night. And that is tremendous to see, of all ages, all nationalities, all, every background that you can think of. So that, I think, is one of the best things about community colleges. So thank you very much, and I really appreciate it. I want to thank my parents are here, Donna and Vince. One of my sons is here, and two colleagues from the college that I've worked with for the 21 years that I've been at the college. So I just want to thank you very much for this honor. Appreciate it.
Let's have your posse stand up and see your family. Yeah, where's mom and dad? Who I got to meet mom and dad. There they are in the back. Okay. Great. So we're going to take a 5-minute break. We will be back at 10:10. It's a little more than a 5-minute break. 10:10, and then we'll take up the items from workforce development. Okay. We're going to get started. I know we have Board Member Baum. Vice President Epstein is chatting it up with Julie Bruno. Everybody's exuberant, but we need to get rolling. Okay, thank you. All right. Our next item is item 2.3, the 2018-2019 expenditure plan for workforce and economic development. Vice Chancellor Executive Vice Chancellor Von Ton Quinlivan will present. Go ahead, Von, take it away.
Good morning, President Estolano, Vice President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and members of the board, and hopefully our audio-visual will go live so that we can see the slides.
But we also have our PowerPoint in front of us,
Great.
right here. Okay.
I'm also joined by members of my dean team, Lynn Shaw to my left and Javier Romero, in case there are additional questions that need to be fielded. So this is our annual process where we bring to you our entire expenditure plan, and we ask for your approval so that we can process the administrative steps needed in order to move money into the field. Actual grants and contracts that are over $100,000 will be brought back to you, as you know. So just a few slides to refresh the types of investments that have occurred in the last year under this bucket. We had been successful in scaling a whole set of innovative workforce models. If you remember a few years back, we had discussed the fact that the skills gap is so great and the needs of regional economies are so great that it's very difficult for one college to solve all the issues alone. And so we've been working in somewhat of an experimentation to see if we can actually engage networks of college to mobilize and to begin solving some of these workforce problems. We've done some of the deep dives into these issues, these programs in front of you, and we're happy to do any further deep dives of areas of interest. So last time you saw an overview of the New World of Work, 21st Century Skills, which brought in badging, but also really tackled this area of great complaints by the employers, which is around soft skills, employability skills. We were able to start with 10 colleges, and now it's on track to hit 35 by the end of this year. We've been also facilitating connecting community colleges into the maker movement through these maker spaces in order to develop transferable STEM skills, especially for those economies that need STEM skills, needing 4 C's: the critical thinking, the communication, the creativity, the collaboration, and a sprinkle of entrepreneurship. So the CCC Maker is now mobilizing at 26 colleges, and has brought our community colleges a lot of recognition there and a lot of collaboration with the 4 years. Work-based learning, in collaboration with our foundation, there are now 34 colleges receiving technical assistance through a set of work-based learning tools and planning process. And you've seen a deep dive previously on apprenticeship. So with the work support of the foundation as well, we have had 3,200 pre-apprentices and 700 apprentices supported through the California Apprenticeship Initiative in order to get apprenticeship as a model out into non-traditional areas beyond the building trades, which we also invest in the building trades, but we're also expanding to non-traditional areas. We continue to hold the course in terms of implementing the strong workforce task force recommendations that you had adopted. Some highlights for this year: we released a public-facing version of the launch board tools, which shows the progress of colleges against their accountability measures. We rolled out in the first year the 17% positive incentive, which is a performance-based funding based on outcomes. So this is the first year rollout. You are seeing the second reading of the apprenticeship minimum qualifications today. Significant progress on that, so we expect closure on that issue. We had gotten a lot of feedback from the field in restructuring our sector strategy, and so those RFAs are out right now. And you've received a deep dive on the CTE rebrand campaign, which was to bring greater visibility and awareness to students and employers on the value of career education programs. The third area I want to quickly highlight is the imperative for vision and success and guided pathway has facilitated really a whole kind of value and around integration. And so here's an example of how we've lived the integration here in the Chancellor's office. When faced with the rollout of where do we house the accountability key performance indicators for guided pathway, we were faced with three choices. One, do we build it from scratch, which based on our experience with the launch board, it was quite a multi-year undertaking. Second, do we buy a brand new data system? And then third is, do we just add a new tab into our launch board tool, which all 114 colleges already had? And that would take a month and a half. And so the Chancellor's office decided, with feedback from the field on the obvious, and we were able to deliver on time the expansion of the launch board for use in other areas beyond workforce. So I think that's an area of greater integration that has proved to be more effective and cost savings as well. We also did a similar thing with a tool that we originally developed on the workforce side, which was called NOVA. And this was to give visibility to how colleges plan, invest, and track the monies from the workforce division. And so we also took the NOVA tool, and with championship from Executive Vice Chancellor Hope, we also integrated guided pathway and other sources of funds into here so that the colleges have one tool to think through the allocation, ideation, proposal, approval, and reporting phases so that they can have greater visibility to all the funds that they have and begin to braid it, because there's no pot of fund that is sufficient to do everything that is needed to achieve their vision for success goal. So having visibility to all their buckets of money and how it comes together, but more importantly, to have the side-by-side view of the accountability data, so the outcomes, as they think about how to invest. That is a key goal of ours, to be able to have side-by-side use of that data as colleges determine how to invest in interventions for students. And then we also have taken advantage of both of these tools in order to support the adult education block grant. So again, you have the possibility, do we create something brand new, or do we begin to converge these tools in order to, so that the colleges have one password to these suite of tools. And so here, the adult education pipeline, the AEBG program, is also leveraging the launch board and the NOVA as its common planning tool and integration accountability tool. So in conclusion, these are the elements of the expenditure plan for the workforce and economic division, and we're open for questions.
Executive Vice Chancellor Tom Quinlan, since we have a couple of, actually a few new board members here, this is their first pass at how we actually allocate these funds. It's a significant amount of funding that's provided through the California Community College Chancellor's Office. Can you talk about how the expenditure plan works in relation to the actual expenditures and how that happens throughout the year?
Yeah, so there is legislative language behind each one of these line items. And for the dollars, especially the really big ones like Strong Workforce Program and the Adult Ed Block Grant, and even the nursing grant and the apprenticeship program. Well, all right, so all of them, they have very strong, it's very detailed language in terms of how we must allocate monies, and so not much is up to the left to discretion. For example, the Strong Workforce Program was intended to close the gap on our state's need for 1 million more middle skill credentials. Remember, these are the ones where it's more than a high school but less than a baccalaureate degree. So training emergency medical technicians or radiologist technicians. These are all middle school credentials. And so there's 5% that allows us some discretion, like we can spend it on technical assistance or developing tools for the field. But the rest of it is 60% go out by formula specified in the bill to local colleges, and then 40% go to the region, where the region's worth of colleges must come together after they look at labor market data, they look at where's the gap, and they consult all their partners in the region before they can spend the money and make investments. So basically, we have a lot of details behind these in terms of how it's specified, and then every year we also have a legislative report that we owe detailing how the monies were used. It's a lot of process. That's why we ask you to approve in advance.
You guys got a little of that wash over you in that first. More of it will sink in as you go through. Very good. So this is a great time to take questions of any board members. Board Member Belansky.
I mean, this is a great a program or great method of assisting with today's world. How do you get more colleges involved to use the tools that are available?
Are you talking about the Launchboard tool and the NOVA tool?
Yeah, and any other things around that you might have.
So many methods. For example, the rollout of the Launchboard was no small undertaking. The good news was that because the strong workforce deliberation had had a window, we knew that it was coming up. So part of it was setting out incentives to the field so that, for example, every college, if they are able to send a key team to the training for how to use the Launchboard, it would unlock $50,000 in funds to help them with technical assistance and training at the local level to integrate Launchboard into their local data system or to clean up their data, which is the source of the Launchboard data. So we did that, and then we rolled out Strong Workforce Program, which required them to use the Launchboard data as a prerequisite for planning. So I think these are just steps to get the field familiar, but both of these tools have 114 colleges on them. Yes, it's a requirement, right.
All right, in the queue I have board members Vaughn and then Avalos. Anybody else? Okay, go ahead, board member Vaughn.
Thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor. I can't find another person who has the passion, talents, and skill and speed to actually oversee such a tremendous undertaking by the Chancellor's Office on this WED program, Workforce and Economic Development. On the multiple elements of the whole program, the nursing program, quite a substantial amount is devoted to it, I guess, this coming year. Is this to actually provide our students with the full RN degree or the full nursing program at the at the community college level without having to go to the four-year institutions?
This is, we've gone around the block wanting to have the ability to do the 4-year. As you know, there's a significant shortage of that level, the bachelor level trained nurses. However, that is not that is not authorized for us to do that. So this is training students at the AA level for nursing, and it's based, the monies go out based on colleges raising their hand and saying, we're going to serve X amount of students, and then the formula generates the monies that they would get. Here.
So if I may follow up on that, then so there are pilot programs for the baccalaureate degrees in various things, and I don't know if this is an appropriate time to bring this up.
It's an excellent question
go right
to
ahead.
ask.
Okay, well, thank you.
Ask
if
the
you say
obvious
so,
question.
President and Chancellor.
Yes, absolutely.
And the reason is I just was talking to a CSU student very recently, and she said, hey, Professor, it's so weird in that here I know a friend who has 3.9 GPA and could not get into a nursing program at the CSU campus. And faced with that question, and looking here at the multiple dollars that the state government is allocating to this, I'm just scratching my head, and I mean, you guys are all smarter than I am. What can we do actually to move this? Because the shortage of the nurses is severe in our state.
Perhaps the Chancellor will help me out on this question.
That is the right question. we clearly have a workforce shortage. There has been a task force convened of the three systems of higher ed, along with education or healthcare employers. That was convened by the University of California to look at the pipeline. And again, this issue was brought forward as a critical need. But the challenge has been the political will to allow the California community colleges to offer the BSN. The BSN was the whole point of even beginning the conversation about baccalaureates in the community colleges. If there is one area of clear demand, that is the one. It's appropriate that Vice Chancellor Mattoon walked in right when we were having this discussion. This has been a topic of conversation in our office, as well as with what I think is, most people would agree, is the informal leader of the baccalaureate movement in the community colleges, Chancellor Constance Carroll. We think that we will probably need to take this on again. This will not in any way, shape, or form be an easy lift, and we'll need to see what the incoming administration thinks about this issue. But clearly there's a demand, and it is our job to fulfill that demand. So I'm hopeful that we will come back to the board at a future meeting and talk more specifically about this.
I'm so glad you asked that question. It's always important to highlight the obvious needs that aren't being addressed. All right, Board Member Avalos, followed by Board Member Shaw and Board Member Baum and Haynes. I got it.
Thank you for the presentation. Quick question for you. Maybe it's not a quick question, but it's a question. The question is, when we're, we've been at this strong workforce program for a bit now, and we've allocated, quite a bit of money to the program. Can you give us some highlights, some data points that say, it's working? So that would be amazing to just get a little view on how it's going. And then secondly, are there areas that we can help you with that might be the blockers that are preventing the program from being even more successful?
So why don't I start out, and then I'll ask Lynn Shaw to give it some flavor. There is a little bit of a lag time that the colleges had forewarned us about, and that is as the money flows in the first year, there's a lag for them before they start enrolling students, and then we see outcomes. So we can only see early indicators on whether or not are they doing more career education or better career education. We do see, so we're looking at how they're investing, and we're hearing some very positive news. For example, recently it was shared with us that Amazon and cloud computing is working with the 18 colleges of the LA area in order to create a cloud computing certificate. That's a very hot area in great demand. So we're beginning to see seeding of programming that is very much what the employers want. And we have to wait a little bit to see the data reflected into the launch board in terms of student outcomes.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much. I co-chaired the task force, and we had several recommendations that you approved, and we've been working diligently on them. And one of the ways we sort of track is we collect artifacts that demonstrate work on a specific recommendation. And there are 25 recommendations with many, many sub-bullets, so it's about 84. But we have 211 pieces of evidence on our website right now showing that the work being done. And I'll just give you one example. A couple of the statewide faculty leaders came to me and said, I think it's an urban myth that faculty are so underpaid and so industry won't be interested in working with us. So what you need to do is you need to look at the full package, the benefits, the summer pay, the overload, all the things that faculty do that is not reflected in the job description. And so we did a short study about that, and that is posted on the website. And thanks to Lynette, the president of the California Community College Association, she's the one that came to me with that idea. It did show that it was pretty comparable in terms of the pay when you look at the full package. So that is like a direction for us to take to recruit industry experts into our classroom that we hadn't considered before, with doing some very simple things about how we recruit. So that's one example.
Board Member Avalos, if I could add to that, the full implementation of the Vision for Success would go a long way to infuse career education in everything that we do. I think for too long we've treated strong workforce as a separate and apart initiative from the academic mission of the California community colleges. It is one and the same, and we need to continue to move it in that direction. We need to continue to eliminate the silos that exist, not just in our office and the Chancellor's office, but these silos are replicated across every one of our 114 colleges. There's career education on one side of the building or one side of the campus, and then the rest of the academic mission on the other side. Our students, whether they're veterans, foster youth, students coming right out of high school, everyone is interested in employment. And the more we can infuse career education, career exploration into the Guided Pathways framework, into everything that we're doing, the better off we're going to be. So we see this as an important part of the Vision for Success, that we really drive the integration across all parts of what we do. So that's a topic we will continue to talk about with the board.
Okay, Board Member Shaw, followed by Board Members Baum and Haynes.
Well, I'm kind of sick too today. Board Member Avalos really asked my question, but I want to just commend Executive Vice Chancellor and everything that she does and everybody involved. It's a very complicated and wide-ranging subject area. But I'm going to ask the question again because maybe I didn't hear the answer. Is that what is it, and if you could be non-political, what is it that you need that you're not getting?
Ooh.
I will take the flak for whatever you say, Bob, so just say what's on your mind.
We're now in a phase where administratively move monies out. What we wanted to do was to align monies, metrics, and data so that the wind is all blowing in the same direction for the colleges. So there's no, they're fully supported in that way. What would help us, and this is also, my own team is going to begin doing this year, is every time we meet with a college or we're in front of an audience, we start talking about the outcomes, the Vision for Success outcomes, how they're doing in the region against this outcome, how they're doing against the sector against the outcomes. So the more that we're talking about the outcomes that we want in Vision for Success, which are the same metrics as the Strong Workforce Program, I think we will begin to have an echo chamber, and people will know that that is important to us.
Thank you. Board Member Baum, followed by Board Member Haynes.
Yeah, I just want to again pick up on Member Avalos's comment too. That you shared a few data points too, but when can we expect to see a dashboard both for this and for Vision for Success so that we can, that will help me help advocate for the system if I have some regular metrics that we're looking at on a regular basis that we can hold ourselves accountable.
So if you can look back at the slide, on this slide that has to do with the launch board, we actually have public facing but data available to you. I'm wondering if we should do a deep dive that features how you use these tools.
Right, but I don't want a deep dive. I want a systematic one-page or two-page dashboard that we can then use, because I had the privilege of, I was in DC and met with our new lobbying firm, and one of the things that I think if we're effective advocates for ourselves, but we'd be even more effective if the business community was advocating for community colleges. The people, the employers were advocating for community colleges. I want to go to an employer and say, here's your ROI for what you can do for community colleges. So it's not a question, but I'd like to boil this down into a few digestible data points that we could take in, rather than, I'm glad that it's all available, and I also, when I was a local trustee, I'd then go, obviously, when the state would put out numbers, I'd go exactly and then see what my district, how in a hit was performing against a cohort. And so I'm eager to have that.
Maybe that's something that we can incorporate into your Friday communications.
Or just a regular, I found out, for example, when we did the associate degree for transfer, and we had a chart, and we saw which district and how many districts had adopted the degrees, and we can kind of measure that meeting to meeting to meeting. Now, obviously, these are all going to be more annual numbers, but there was a period where there was a student success report card that would come out. How many degrees were awarded? How many? What are success rates? Also interested in achievement gaps among different groups, and how are they being met as well, too.
We can do that.
Okay, and then Board Member Haynes.
Thank you. There's several things. One, I want to recognize the amount of money going to attrition reduction. That is really key given the number of slots that are available, and when you have and the cost of each one of those slots in terms of training a nurse. And so as we look at, I'll use the R word, the reforming potentially, or at least relooking at the nursing program, I'm hoping that this particular program is a costly one, given the science that's required and all of the prereqs that are required before you're even placed in the lottery. And I know from my past experience with this program that the lottery system is in place because there were fewer nursing students of color that made it through the pipeline. So I understand the intention of having a lottery, but there are unintended consequences of having a lottery. My own personal experience is with a particular individual who had met all of the pre-quals to be placed in the lottery at a 3.25 grade point average, was in the lottery for 5 times and then gave up. So there's an inequity relative to who is prepared to get in and who doesn't, by virtue of the lottery itself, doesn't get in. And so there may be other ways of looking at changing that, one that recognizes we need to have a diverse, ethnically and racially diverse population of nurses, given that diversity in the state, but then also recognizes that the lottery doesn't do all that it should do. And then finally, my own personal experience with being on a community college district that has 2 nursing programs, one at American River College and the other at Sacramento City College, that has done a fabulous job. And our board looked at putting our hat in for the baccalaureate degree and chose not to do so, not because it was the most logical place to go, but the other piece of this is the cost we felt to our other programs, that our colleges and our faculty and our staff, we were being asked to make huge changes across our districts, and to add the BA might have sort of tipped the scales of not doing anything too well. So I just wanted to share that particular note. This is a wonderful program. We got to figure out a way to increase the number of slots for this program so that we are really maximizing the number of students that are prepared and want to go into this field.
Board Member DeLilly, followed by Board Member Walker Griffin.
Thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor. I think something that's very unique to the Strong Workforce Program is sort of the requirement of the program to progress with technology, business needs, the climate, especially in California, of technology and industry. So my question is, how are we able to continue progressing the Strong Workforce Program with the business climate? And you spoke about the cloud services with Amazon. How are we able to continue keeping what we're doing with the program aligned with the trends of technology and the trends of industry, especially in California?
There's a number of structural elements. One is that we have seeded every region with labor market technical assistance. So there's dedicated experts who are supporting colleges as they need to do the analytics on where they make their investment. The other that is happening is colleges, and I'm sure Member Fawn can attest to this. It's a lot of effort for a single faculty to support a whole advisory board, and that's required for career education program. And so what we have done, I mean, what the field has essentially done is, because we're looking at it at a regional level, regional scale, they are beginning to regionalize many of these advisories because you don't need to have the same hospital attend, 28 advisories in the Bay Area, right? So in order to have region-scale advisory, that has actually made it easier for employers to engage with us in a substantive way.
Board Member Walker Griffin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor. I'm going to pick your brain out, so I do apologize for the large amount of questions, but I'm just curious to know how this is going to help out people in low-income areas, especially people who are first-generation students, and I'm kind of thinking more along the lines of in the summer when typically if you show up to a college, it's practically dead, no one's there, especially those, since this is revolving around K through 12 and college, how is it going to help out parents who have kids who want to take some classes maybe like in the summer, like I said, when typically community colleges are dead?
So we will start, maybe the best way to answer that is we start with the data. So the data in the launch board, and it was very clear from the social advocacy group that participated on the task force that they wanted to see the data broken out by ethnicity, by first generation, by all sorts of compositions so that you can see whether or not communities are participating in these programs. And so we start with the data, and then as we get more experience with using the data, then we also begin working on partnering with ancillary systems. So we rolled out a round one of partnerships to unlock social mobility. And it's actually having our colleges meet the public workforce system in order for the two communities to figure out how do we actually braid our resources together to help students, or from their point of view, clients, get into the system and get education. Round two this year, partnership to unlock social mobility will be focused on inmate education. There's roughly $37 million going out through the labor agency for that. And so we want our colleges and that system to talk and see how many more in our communities can help. So again, we have to start with the data because it's very different by program, whether or not there's adverse impact. And then we begin marrying up partners in order to really do a better job at bringing our communities into these worlds.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from members of the board? So I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Appreciate your PowerPoint presentation and the ability to, or the chance to ask you all these random questions, somewhat related and totally related to workforce education. Board Member Baum talked about wanting to have that dashboard or some sort of a summary, and I'm kind of keeping a tally of everything that everybody's requesting. But if we do come back, I think the thing that I'm most interested in, Vaughn, is getting a sense of how we're doing by sector. Right. I mean, you've organized folks regionally and by sector, and it would be great to know, say, in bioscience, how are we doing in advanced manufacturing? And it's also more digestible because we tend to think of, we could do it by region, but we can also do it by sector, and you can have a sense of who's doing great in what particular sector. You're not going to do everything, but it might be nice to have some highlights to understand where there's the best collaborations happening. Because your point about having these industry advisory councils, industry gets, the same really good actor in industry gets asked to do everything over and over and over again. And what the beauty of this program is trying to leverage those resources of the private sector with our tremendous resources at the community colleges. So it'd be really nice to see where that collaboration's working well and where we've been able to move the needle if we have the data yet. I totally heard you, what you said about the lag time. It was a lot to push the money out the door, set up the systems to get the money out the door to align the metrics with the data, with the funding. So maybe a couple years, but maybe we can talk offline. But at some point, it'd be great to hear a few things, a few highlights of a few sectors where things are working well, and maybe some where there have been some problems, and how we might address those, to go to the point of what do you need that you're not getting, it would be good for the board to understand some of the impediments of trying to use this approach, this integrated approach towards sector and regional strategies. With that, I'm going to entertain a motion. This is, remember, we are approving the expenditure plan. Sorry, Board Member Belansky.
I move that we approve the
Beautiful.
2018-2019
Beautiful. I need a second.
expenditure plan of the Workforce and Economic Development Division.
All right, I have a second by Board Member Dalili. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. Okay, that is item 2.3.